What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We are here with some more NFL DFS picks and lineup advice. This time for the single game showdown slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. Thursday Night Football, Kansas City Chiefs, Denver Broncos. Picks, lineup strategies, everything you need for tonight's game. Welcome. I am Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy. Single game $1 million winner. If you're new here, welcome. In these videos, we like to talk about the injuries that impact the slate, low risk and high risk lineup construction tips, some angles I'm thinking about for tonight's game, and just some general strategies to help you get to the top of those showdown contests. Now, let's start with the injuries. And obviously the biggest one is Travis Kelce. We saw him, and I think everyone was holding their breath for the longest time on Sunday against the Vikings when he went down with that non-contact injury. Fortunately, by all indications, this is just a low ankle sprain. Your very typical basketball injury, low ankle sprain. Was heavily taped up in practice, didn't practice on Monday by practice estimations. Limited Tuesday and Wednesday, officially questionable. I think he's going to suit up based on the injury, based on Kelce and his desire to play. And if you're into this sort of thing, it sounds like Taylor Swift's going to be in attendance. Would she come if Travis isn't going to suit up? I don't think so. So it sounds like Travis Kelce is going to play. So as of right now, 10 a.m. Eastern, maybe a little earlier when I'm recording this, we are assuming that Travis Kelce is playing. And on that note, actually, let's run through the injuries, and then I'll explain the pricing dynamic for this slate based on the injuries. Kansas City is also getting back linebacker Nick Bolton, one of their best defensive players. He's been out for a couple of games. He'll be back tonight. Certainly helps their 10-point favorite cause. Now, on Denver's side, Javonte Williams, who missed Sunday's game, their second-year running back, he probably could have played on Sunday, but if you listen to his reports, his interview on Friday last week, he was basically saying it's up to the coaching staff. If I'm not out there Sunday, I will definitely be out there Thursday. Man, true to his word, he's out there tonight, not even listed on the injury report, so we can expect him to get whatever we anticipate his normal workload to be. That is a matter of opinion at this point, but Javonte Williams is back and seemingly healthy. Now, Denver's still missing some other defensive players. They got some back last week, but now they're getting back. They're losing their nose tackle, DJ Jones. That certainly boosts the Kansas City run game. Not that the Denver defense needed anybody else to make that defense any worse, but is what it is. The other injury we have to monitor, and we're pretty sure this is going to happen, but we will know officially by 4 p.m. Eastern, is Greg Dulcich, the tight end for Denver. A very popular best ball pick before the season started. Popular dynasty pick. A lot of people had, including the coaching staff, had high expectations for Greg Dulcich this year. Unfortunately, halfway through week one, hamstring blew out. He was put on injured reserve. He was back practicing this week. The Broncos actually waived Lil Jordan Humphrey to clear up a roster spot. Most beat reporters for Denver indicate that that's likely to activate Dulcich from the injured reserve today. They don't have to do it until 4 p.m., so we don't know for sure. So monitor the news. If he's back, $3,200, a reasonable price tag based on his role, but just another weapon, potentially low-owned guy to add into the mix here. He would take away from some of Adam Troutman's work. We saw them kind of split in week one. Troutman's been the guy ever since, not doing much with it, but Dulcich is the guy that they want to involve in their offense, especially in the pass game. So let's monitor those activations this afternoon. Now, speaking of that, of the injuries, if you remember, I believe it was the Green Bay slate maybe a couple of weeks ago, where in this exact video, I talked about how DraftKings just priced up everyone as if some of the studs were out because they didn't want any mispricings if those studs didn't play. All the studs ended up playing. A lot of guys ended up overpriced. That's kind of similar to tonight. Not as extreme as that Green Bay slate, but Javonte Williams, if he would have been out, they didn't want Jordan McLaughlin, who scored last week, looked pretty good doing it. They didn't want him to be like 5K, 4K, and then just be a 50% owned player. If Travis Kelce was to be out, they didn't want like week one when Kelce surprisingly missed that opening night game, and Noah Gray was super cheap. So they made Noah Gray $4,400 today. So it seems this year that DraftKings is erring on the side of let's overprice the backups rather than underprice the backups because we don't want them. Well, I don't know if this is what they're saying, but it's good for us. We don't want the backup being 50, 60, 70% owned in some contests. So they've gone ahead and priced them up. So Gray, pretty much unplayable. If Kelce plays, he's still overpriced basically at $4,400. And if Javonte somehow didn't play, McLaughlin would probably be overpriced still, but more reasonably priced. And now he's just completely overpriced because Javonte's in and splitting work with him. So just something to think about and how it impacts ownership and lineup construction for tonight. All right, let's talk about low risk contests. 50-50s, double ups, head to heads. Just have to beat half the field, double your money. Say this every week, right? Broken record at this point. But if you've watched these videos before, if you've read our showdown guide, which if you haven't already, we get a lot of questions about historical data, high level construction, what's worked in the past. If you haven't read our showdown guide, it's on our site, occupyfantasy.com. The link's in the description. Make sure you read that. Tons of data, tons of back testing, tons of information for showdown contests. So make sure you go read that. And in that guide, we talk about trying to lock up all the scoring in low-risk contests by playing quarterbacks and running backs or playing the value plays. Now, a little difficult to lock up all the scoring with split backfields and on a 10-point favorite. So can't really go that route tonight. And the values are relatively slim. But let's talk about it. So if we were to play low-risk contests, I'm just going to pull up my notes here just to make sure. So really, you're just jamming all the Chiefs, right? So Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, the two highest floor-stealing guys on the slate. Pacheco has been getting a lot of work lately. Let's look at him. 15 straight rush attempts in 3 games in a row. A touchdown in each of those games. Going to be extremely popular against a terrible run defense. We saw what Breece Hall did to them last week. Going to be extremely popular. So Pacheco, we got to get him in there as well. 9,400, by the way. His price is really up there compared to some of the previous Chiefs showdown slates. Now we're just at 3,400 per player. If we try to play Russell Wilson, which locks up scoring, plays a quarterback from the other side, just 400 per player. Could we make it work? I mean, we could punt the final 2 spots. I really don't think it's the way you want to go. You could play Kelce. There's another option. Save some salary. Whoops. Let's try this here. Play Kelce at captain, which I still don't feel great about with his ankle injury in low-risk contests. This isn't really a low-risk type of play. But if we're trying to fit all these guys in, now we get 850 per player. We could play a cheap guy in Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's going to be relatively popular on this slate at just 1K on DraftKings. And if we look at CEH's game logs, getting 3+ touches, guaranteed points basically in every game that he's played. And if you get guaranteed points at $1,000, that's pretty nice to have in a low-risk contest when you can pay up for Kelce, Mahomes, Pacheco on a big favorite. So Edwards-Helaire is going to be popular in low risk and smaller contests, and I get it. I think he's a guy that you want to play. And then you could play a $700 guy. We also think Justin Ross will be relatively popular in these types of contests. Two catches last week on 4 targets. Yeah, so 4.8 DraftKings points. Still not very low risk, right? Because he's only scored a point in 2 of 5 games through 5 weeks this year. But he's an option. So if you play Ross there, that is an option as well. All in all, I mean, you could fade Russell Wilson. Not the worst idea. And then you play, yeah, that's the next question. Who do you play? Denver defense kicker, Dulcich, like one of those guys, right? It's a possibility. All this is to say low-risk contests aren't very fun tonight, not very easy. Never really are when you have these types of these projected game scripts. Same goes for FanDuel as well. Let's go back over to FanDuel. Actually, let's just go over to FanDuel. We haven't been over there yet. So Mahomes, Wilson, Kelce, 6,500 per player. That doesn't even include Pacheco. We can't do that. I would lead on the side of leaving Kelce out tonight. Let's put in Pacheco. I mean, that's still 6,750 per player. Technically, you could do this, but as I've talked about before, playing 2 sub 8K guys in low risk and small fields is not really the way to go. I guess you would probably get rid of Russell Wilson here. And then who do you play? Let's go Bucker, Chiefs. What does this look like? 10K per player. By the way, someone in our Discord, I believe, asked about playing backup quarterbacks. I can't remember where the question was. Maybe it was a YouTube comment. But we talked about in FanDuel, it is particularly plus EV to play those guys. But when they're 5K, for some reason, Jarrett Stidham, FanDuel priced him up at 10K this week. I don't know if they're anticipating a Russell benching, but Stidham is at 10K this week. It made me laugh. P. Ryan. So I guess this is probably the way to go. Something like this. These 4 Chiefs. But it feels super gross leaving out Kelce and Russ Wilson. So all this is a long way of saying low-risk contests are extremely difficult tonight. If you can find a lineup that you like, you can find some inexperienced head-to-heads. You can find some smaller double-ups, 50-50s with inexperienced players. Go for it. Not really the slate that I'm looking to hammer in low-risk contests, though. All right. Now let's talk about why you're all here. High-risk contests, GPPs, leagues, satellites, exponential payouts, the big paydays. And I'm going to give you some angles, talk about some ideas on how I'm approaching high-risk contests tonight, whether it's the smaller GPPs or the larger GPPs. So let's think about it here. And I'll pull up my notes just so I give you all the information. Now, there's a popular drinking game in our Discord server where every time I talk about how the field is going to build one type of lineup, that you should build another type of lineup. So I know it's early for me, but pour a drink because the Chiefs onslaughts, 5-1 Chiefs, 4-2 Chiefs, 4-1 on FanDuel. going to be extremely popular tonight, and as they should be, right? Tons of viable plays on their side. 10.5-point favorites. Denver hasn't inspired much confidence really all season. So if we know the field is going to do that, one angle to get different and get away from that is to play lineups with 2 or more Broncos, 3 or more Broncos, and it may seem extremely gross, but literally all you have to do is think to the last Chiefs primetime game when they played the Jets. No one thought the Jets could get more than one guy into the optimal lineup, and hell, in the largest GPP, there were 3 Jets. It was a 3-3 stack, and in smaller GPPs, even 4 Jets were in winning lineups. So there's a way that happens, and especially on the Chiefs, right? Every Chiefs showdown slate, and it's going to happen here in another minute or so, I'm going to talk about how there are low-owned Chiefs receiving options to pair with Mahomes, and how you can get different with a popular captain and play these Chiefs receivers. Yet every week, they're mostly terrible, right? As much as we want to play low-owned guys, and we're going to do it again tonight, play Sky Moore, Valdez-Scantling, Kadarius Toney, Rashee Rice, Justin Watson, Justin Ross, you name it. If all these guys catch 2-3 balls, cannibalize, and or don't play well, that opens up for these Denver guys to sneak in, even if they get blown out or somehow make it competitive. And if Pacheco gets a couple of rushing touchdowns, if all the offense flows through Kelsey, which certainly is a possibility, if not a likelihood, then if they're taking up all the production, these 3 guys, that opens up for more Denver-heavy lineups. Yes, Chiefs defense, Harrison Butker can get there, but if we get these other guys in any of the Denver receivers or running backs, the cheaper tight ends, hell, their kicker or defense, Denver's defense super cheap. Just $3K on DraftKings, the cheapest defense you will see in Showdown. And on FanDuel, Broncos, this might be the cheapest defense I've seen on FanDuel as well, $7,500. It's crazy. And you think about it, all they need is a pick 6, fumble 6. We've seen it happen. We saw it happen on opening night. No one was playing the Lions defense against Mahomes. Toney turns it into a pick 6. Couple sacks, turnovers. Broncos defense at sub 5%, a very good play in a high-risk contest. But again, that is just another way that we end up with multiple Broncos in the winning lineup, something that you should not stray away from. All right, some other angles here. Now, let's talk about the Chiefs receivers, as I just mentioned. So, an interesting interview I saw was with Chase Daniel, who was former quarterback, was with the Chiefs for a while, and he made a really good point because, admittedly, I've never played in the NFL. I've never played high-level football. I've never been inside of a locker room or a coach's meeting in the NFL. I think that's fair to say for most people. But we always want the younger guys to get more playing time. We always want teams to switch up the game plan a little bit. And Chase Daniel basically said in this interview that I saw that on a short week like this week, when they play on Sunday and they play back on Thursday, the team, at least with Andy Reid, doesn't change much up. They might add a couple plays in here, but they're basically just building off what they've done weeks 1 through 4, last few weeks, last game even, because there's so much information in a short period of time that you don't want to overwhelm your players. So just put in what they know, maybe add a couple extra wrinkles here and there. Most of the base plays and base situations that they've been playing are going to happen again. So listening to that makes me think we're not going to see some major role change. While we all want Justin Ross and Rashee Rice to get more snaps, I mean, I'm sick of Sky Moore and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I'm sure you are too if you've been playing Chiefs Showdown slates and or just classic slates, right? So all we want Ross to build on his 4-target performance last week. He only ran 6 routes. And on a short week, based on what Chase Daniel was saying, are we going to expect Ross to all of a sudden run 15, 20, 25 routes? No. We'll probably see that if it happens in week 7. We saw it with the Giants. The Giants is a great example of this phenomenon that Chase Daniel was discussing. Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson, but mostly Jalen Hyatt in week 2 against Arizona. Played a little bit more in the second half. The following week, they had a short week, and one of our angles was maybe Hyatt gets more run because he gave the offense a spark. Starting receivers haven't been doing much, but he played basically as much, if not less, on that short week on Thursday, probably because of what Chase Daniel was saying. You don't want to change too much, overwhelm guys. Let's just keep it the same, add a few more things. And then the following week, when we have 10 days off, then we can make some changes. After that 10-day mark, that's when we saw Hyatt take on a huge role. We saw Wan'Dale Robinson take on a huge role. So I wouldn't expect a big change from Justin Ross or Rashee Rice. Kadarius Toney ran more routes than Rice last week. And while we want Rice to play more, Toney's the guy. And on a short week, we probably can't expect Rice to all of a sudden get a huge uptick in routes. And despite that, we have Rashee Rice, a little bit more popular, and he's more pricey, more expensive at $6,400. as the most popular Chiefs receiver, probably, which is crazy. So play the guys that have been playing for the Chiefs. I know we want to get sucked into playing Ross and Rice, but their roles are probably going to stay the same for this Thursday night. And then the next showdown slate, or if you want to play Chiefs showdown in week 7, if they play in week 7, I don't even know what the schedule is, or you want to take some shots in larger contests, that's the time to do it. It sounds like, based on what I'm reading, that there won't be much of a role change tonight, and those guys will be a little bit overpriced and overowned as a result. Those guys being Rice and Ross. But that still gives us Sky Moore, Valdez-Scantling, Justin Watson, Kadarius Toney, probably the best option based on his target per route run information, as cheap, low-owned guys to pair with Patrick Mahomes if you decide to play him at captain or in the flex spots. All right, what else here? Let's see. So you could fade. Right now we have 20 to 25% plus projected ownership for both Mahomes and Kelsey. Same goes for FanDuel as well. And good angle, as we saw in the Jets-Chiefs game. You play Isaiah Pacheco. He probably gets a little more popular than he was in that game for sure. But fading the popular captains is an easy way to get different. You can play them in the flex. I think I'll probably be underweight on Kelsey. If you're playing one lineup, I probably would not play Kelsey based on he's still outperforming his expected points, which most tight ends do. He's outperforming a little more, despite a lot of the underlying metrics being pretty scary for Travis Kelsey being an older tight end. Multiple injuries already so far this year. He's overperformed based on some red zone work. So an interesting idea that I've had that I was thinking about this morning, a really weird rule you might want to make, is max one of Travis Kelsey and Jerick McKinnon. You may say, why in the hell would you make that rule? So McKinnon, 5,200, 18 plays last week. He's going to play in that 15 to 25 play range. And if Kansas City dominates here, McKinnon's not going to get a ton of work outside of 2-minute drills, third downs, things like that. However, they still bring in McKinnon in the red zone sometimes. They design plays for McKinnon in the red zone. And if Kelsey's going to be optimal, likely he's scoring touchdowns, right? Yeah, maybe he goes 10 for 100, possible. On a bad ankle, maybe not. But if they design these plays for McKinnon in the red zone and he's stealing targets and touchdowns, we've seen it many times. He had a stretch last year, like 8 games in a row with a touchdown, whatever it was. They design plays that like using McKinnon in the red zone. If McKinnon's stealing those touchdowns, it's likely that Kelsey is not getting them. And vice versa. If Kelsey's getting all the touchdowns, McKinnon's only getting a couple of receptions, a couple of touches. Maybe it's a blowout, 40 points, right? I'm just saying, if I'm making small field lineups, that's a rule I would try to get in. I would still mix in McKinnon there, even though Pacheco is getting all the work, even though CEH is mixing in and getting enough touches to be valuable here. McKinnon can be the optimal Chiefs running back if he gets some touchdown variance. And if he does, it would probably take away from Kelsey and vice versa. So just an idea I had, not necessarily something that you have to do, but maybe something to keep in mind as you're building your smaller lineups. And finally, the last point I'll touch on here are the Denver running backs. And Williams, McLaughlin, overpriced. P. Ryan, probably the best price, 5K. All three are going to split snaps. If this is a trailing game script like we expect, P. Ryan's probably the guy we want here. But we have McLaughlin projected for less than 5% ownership. Javonte Williams, more popular, higher projections, as he should. He's the more talented, higher draft capital running back, started the season. But every indication, this coaching staff is just fucking obsessed with McLaughlin. Maybe it's behind the scenes. Maybe Javonte isn't fully healthy yet. Maybe, I truly don't know. But they love McLaughlin so much. And there were rumblings last week that they were going to give McLaughlin touches ahead of Williams, even though Williams was healthy. This is before he hurt his hip in week 4, week 5, whatever it was. So McLaughlin at 3%. Is he likely to outscore some of these other guys? I mean, maybe, right? He can outscore Rice Sutton. He can outscore guys in this range. He can also be an integral part of Chiefs onslaughts where the one is McLaughlin. Because then he just has to outscore Javonte and just be the highest scoring Denver player in this range. And if you use most of the salary, higher scoring, doesn't even have to be higher scoring than Judy or Sutton. So you get a 5-1 Chiefs stack with a sub 5% guy who's going to get touches. That's an interesting idea. So McLaughlin, while on paper has really bad projections, is a guy that the coaching staff likes, wants to get involved, and could easily be a showdown optimal play in the right type of lineup at less than 10% ownership. So I know it's a lot to digest. Make sure you check out our daily plug later today. It'll be posted this afternoon. The link is in the description below. Rankings for every contest type on both FanDuel and DraftKings. overall slate notes, lineup construction tips for specific contests, basically a lot of what I talk about here, plus more in a much easier to read and digest format. Our writer Bismo does a great job on Mondays and Thursdays, so make sure you go check that out at occupyfantasy.com. If you're not already, make sure you're subscribed here on YouTube. It is free to do. Obviously, it helps us out. We appreciate it as much as you know, but it also helps you out as well. It's mutually beneficial. You get notified when we go live, upload these videos. Sometimes we're doing the live streams on these showdown slates. Sometimes the pre-recorded videos. Sometimes our Saturday live stream time changes. By being subscribed here on YouTube, again, it's free. You'll just get notified whenever those changes happen, whenever videos are posted. So subscribing is the best way to help both of us. Give us a thumbs up if you liked the video. I think we got 200 likes last time. Pretty impressive. So let's see if we can get some more. Let's see if we can eclipse that once again. Just lets us know that you like the content. Any questions, I will monitor this channel throughout the rest of the day. Drop a comment below. Question, concern, anything you want to know about Showdown, you want to chat with other people, comment below. But also our Discord server is open. OccupyFantasy.com/Discord is open to members. You can chat with us, staff, and other members of the Occupy Fantasy community. And come sweat the games with us tonight. So, Brian Jester from Occupy, thank you for listening, and good luck in tonight's Chiefs and Broncos Showdown slate.